While scrolling on Pinterest, I came across this picture and just couldn't get it out of my mind, so that's what I'll be making in this video.
If you are a regular on my channel, then you know the drill, but for anyone new, this channel is about the Sentro Knitting Machine, so I will be using the machine to make the majority of the sweater, with a bit of nooking or crochet thrown in. Of course, you can adjust any part of the process based on your favourite methods, ability and preferences.
I'll tackle the top part first, which I figure is just a cropped cardigan. I think rather than a set-in sleeve, I still want to try a raglan construction. So I'm thinking 2 front pieces shaped like this, back panel shaped like this. Based on my size, this will need to be 2 panels. The sleeve caps will be the same shape as the front panel, extending to the full circumference of the machine so I can knit them in the round. So that's the basic shapes I want to make on the machine, and I'll do the button band by hand.
For the measurements, you can of course measure your body, but my body fluctuates so much and I'm never sure how much ease to use, so I prefer to measure clothes instead. You can always take your tape measure to a store and measure a sweater there if you don't have a raglan one at home.
The measurements I took for height were neckline to armpit and armpit to waist. For width, I did centre to raglan seam to side seam, and waist centre to side seam. I measured the front and back separately rather than doing a circumference, as due to my bust I need more width and length on the front than the back. For the sleeve, I measured the distance between the raglans. I know I like my sleeves to be the circumference of the machine, but you may want to note down a measurement for your arm width and the length from neckline to armpit. I plan on finishing the sleeves last, and based on how much yarn I have left will determine how long the sleeves are. So the sleeve length at this point is a question mark.
Now I have my schematic, I need to pick a yarn and make a swatch. I have chosen the Saltaire yarn by Cedar in the colour Mole. It's an Aran weight, 55% acrylic, 25% nylon and 20% alpaca. To make a swatch, I tend to knit a tube of about 50 rows. It's quick and is big enough so that I can get a feel for the yarn and see how the machine handles it. So good news, the yarn went through the machine like a dream. The swatch is soft, drape well and is opaque enough. I may not have to wear anything underneath when wearing this. The only issue I have is stitch definition is quite bad, as you can see. So I don't think I will be using this for any cables or decorative work, which makes it a good choice for this project versus the bubble sweater. So I measure my swatch to see how many stitches and rows I have per 10 centimeters. And that's all I need the swatch for, so it can be unravelled and turned back into a ball of yarn.
I use these numbers to convert the schematic from measurements to rows and stitches, and we have the start of a pattern. From here on out, all numbers mentioned are for a sweater to fit me. Your numbers may be different, and that's okay. That's all the prep work done, and that's enough effort for today. Tomorrow I can start on the actual fun part. Starting with the front, I cast on 3 and increased until I get to 39. On the next row, I need to add 4 stitches, so I do 1 increase, then use waste yarn to cast on 3 extra stitches. And that's the armhole complete. The only thing left to do is the decreases for the waist shaping. I decided to space mine evenly down the side, doing 1 decrease every 10 rows for 30 rows, and then the final 8 rows. Then I cast off. This took about 17 minutes. Before I move on to making any other pieces, I try it on. I just pinned it to my template sweater to see if I am on the right track. Looks good to me, exactly how I wanted it, so let's crack on with making the other pieces. The other front piece is made the same way, but instead of casting on 1 to 3, I cast on 3 to 1. That way I'll get a mirror image, but all of my row counts remain the same. For the back, I cast on 20 stitches and did 32 rows, increasing on just one side. Then casting on extra stitches for the underarm, and it's the same as the front from here, so the side seams will match up. 38 rows with a decrease every 10 rows. I was getting into a bit more of a rhythm now and did the back panel in about 15 minutes, and I moved straight onto the other side with casting on in the opposite direction to get a mirrored piece. For the sleeves, I cast on 3 stitches and did increases on both sides until I had 8 empty needles. I then had to simultaneously cast on and knit those 8 needles so I could make the switch from knitting flat to knitting in the round. So I just made sure the waste yarn was going around the pins as the needle was picking up the working yarn. And then I did 25 rows for the sleeves, just to give myself some length. And just like knitting by hand, I find knitting in the round is more fun and much faster. So these flew off the machines in about 12 minutes. If I have any yarn left at the end, I will put the sleeves back on the machine and make them longer. So after an hour and a half, all the cardigan pieces are complete and ready to be seamed. I used mattress stitch for the back panels, so the seam would be nice and invisible, especially with this yarn. For the diagonal seams, I attempted to mimic a linking machine, which is what is used in most mass-produced knitwear. To do that, I put my pieces right sides together and positioned them into place with some clips. Then with a crochet hook, I went through both pieces as close to the top as I could and did a slip stitch. When I get to the stitches on hold, I could do a Kitchener stitch to these. Can I be bothered? No. No one is going to see them. It's going to be in your armpits, so I just crocheted them together through one stitch and the opposite one, yarn over and pull through all 3, and do that for all 4 stitches. This was honestly so fast, about 5 minutes per seam, and that's the best finish I've had on a diagonal seam. I don't mind it being obvious, as that's the whole design of the raglan sleeve, and I think once this yarn has been washed, the seam will blend in even more. Then I mattress stitched the tiny side seams, and it's really starting to take shape. The next thing to do is the button band, but I've had enough of this project for today, so that's a task for tomorrow. And with the magic of editing, ta-da! The button band is complete. I did a 1x1 vertical ribbed band. If you've never picked up stitches for a button band before, I highly recommend this blog by Sister Mountain. It helped me get a smooth band on my first try. Now for the Peplum part, I really went back and forth a lot on the design for this, and this part is going to be very math heavy as I walk you through my process, so skip to this timestamp if math isn't your jam. So I started counting up the stitches on the bottom of the cardigan. For me, I had 158. I figured I wanted at least 1.5 to 2 times that number for the flared part, so that would mean I would need the bottom circumference to have between 237 and 316 stitches. I know the biggest panel I can make on the machine is 44 stitches. So if I divide those numbers by 44, I get 7 and 5 panels. I was a little concerned about the amount of yarn I had left at this point, so I went ahead with a plan of 5 panels. So I need 5 panels ending in 44 stitches. For cast on, I did 158 divided by 5, which is 31.6, so I rounded up to 32. Now I had to decide how long I wanted the panels to be and how to distribute my increases. For length, I tried on the cardigan and measured from the base of the cardigan to where I wanted the peplum to end. For me, this was 30 centimeters. Converted using my gauge, I know that I need 57 rows. time for some more math. So I have to get from 32 needles to 44 needles in 57 rows. So that's 12 increases. And as I want increases evenly on both sides, I need an odd number of rows between the increases. I tried a few different combinations of increasing every 3 rows and every 5 rows. As I wanted a folded hem, I wanted all my increases complete before the final 10 rows. I eventually settled on 6 increases every 3 rows and then 6 increases every 5 rows. This left me with 9 rows at the bottom without any increases, which is perfect as I can count the Kitchener row as my 10th row. So over the next few days, when I had a spare moment, I cast on 32 stitches on the machine and counted out the increases. I had to concentrate quite hard not to increase every row, as I'd been doing that on all of the previous pieces, and I did mess up on a few panels and have to start again. For me, each panel took about 23 grams of yarn, and when I didn't mess up, it took around 15 minutes to knit. But eventually I had all 5 panels. I realised I actually had quite a bit of yarn left, so I decided to do a 6th panel to add more volume. Then it was time to seam the panels together. I went for a mattress stitch this time, so the seams would be as invisible as possible. I mentioned before I wanted to do a folded hem, which is what I did for this sweater, and I love it. If you want a tutorial on how I did the scallop part, just let me know in the comments below. I opted for a straight fold on this sweater as it already has a lot going on. So it's as easy as folding the edge and Kitchener stitching it in place. I'm not going to lie, this was slow going, and after doing about half of the hem, I swapped to whip stitching instead, which was quicker, and personally I think it looked better too. So that's the peplum complete. Tomorrow I'll make a plan and join these bad boys together. And it's the final day. Hopefully today she will be all finished. So let's just make a plan to join these together. The top half has 158 stitches. Doing a final count of the peplum, I have 192. I must have had enough of math at this point because I thought the difference between those was 32. It was actually 34. Which is what I put into the World Knits calculator and explains why I had 2 extra stitches near the end and had to throw in a few more knit 2 togethers. Right, so this is the front of the cardigan, and this is the skirt thing, peplum, and I'm going to put them right sides together so that we've got both waist yarns facing upwards, and these loops on the waist yarns are the stitches we're going to join together. And based on what World Knit says, I've got my little tally here of what I need to do. A crochet hook and some yarn. So I want to start with a slip knot. Put that on my hook. Please forgive my cat eating his biscuits very loudly. Okay, so we want to knit 2, so line these up. And I'm going to go through 1 stitch on the peplum, 1 stitch on the cardigan, and my yarn tail, yarn over, and pull through 2. So that was knit 1. Next stitch on the peplum, next stitch on the cardigan, yarn over, pull through everything. Okay, so that was knit 2 done. Next we're going to knit 2 together and then knit 4. So knit 2 together, I'm going to take 2 stitches from the peplum. So 1, 2, 1 stitch from the cardigan, which means that's the next one. Yarn over, pull through everything. That was the knit 2 together, then we're going to knit 4. So speed this through for you, so you get one stitch from either side, yarning over, pulling through everything. Do that 4 times. 4. I'm going to do that 31 times, so I'm just going to start a little tally. Done it 1. So then we start again with the knit 2 together. 2 stitches from the peplum, 1 stitch from the cardigan, yarn over, pull through everything. And I'm just going to repeat that until hopefully they're all joined together, and hopefully a 4mm hook was the right size, otherwise I'll pull it all out and try with a bigger hook. Okay, so this is all the yarn I have left, which is about just shy of 30 grams. So I've split it into 3 balls. So I'm going to use 1 each on each sleeve. And then this is for binding off. I haven't decided how I'm going to bind off yet, but I figured I'd leave some yarn left over for that. So the next thing to do is to get the sleeves put back on the machine. So I'm just taking the stitches that we cast off and putting them on each needle. I tell you, this was a struggle. I kept having to stop and turn the sweater from underneath the machine as it was stopping the machine from turning. I think this project would have been much easier if I wasn't playing yarn chicken, but I kind of like the idea of it being a zero waste project, and I don't have to worry about using up any scraps afterwards. So it turns out I managed to get an extra 23 rows on each sleeve, which brought the sleeves to a nice 3/4 length. I asked in the community tab how I should finish off the sleeves, and majority voted for a standard 1x1 rib. So I did 7 rows of that and bound off with single crochet. So the last thing to do is to sew on the buttons, and I think we're ready to go to the reveal. So this is the final product, and I have to say I am over the moon with it. It's not perfect, so starting with the things I would like to improve, my hem turned out a little weird, but I think I know where I went wrong, and I think my next video is going to be all about perfecting a folded hem, because I do like the look of the uninterrupted stockinette stitch. My only other gripe is that the button band seems to pull the center front up a little, so I think I need to practice on button bands a bit more as well. However, for the pros, I am super thrilled with the raglan fit around the bust and the arm side, and there's no extra fabric or bunching there. I'm also in love with this yarn. I think the online description says it perfectly. Alpaca fibres allow the stitches to plump out, giving an all-over evenness and slight haze to your finished fabric, ideal for subtle stitch details. So I think this may become my go-to yarn from now on, but I'll hold off on a massive order until I've put this through the wash a few times. Saying that though, if you do make a mistake that you need to fix, it is very difficult, if not impossible to do, because you just cannot see your individual stitches. So perhaps this might not be the best yarn for beginners. Overall, I think this was a very successful project. What do you think? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!